My black uncle showed up to cater a BBQ, and the white family hosting started hurling racist slurs. They thought they could get away with it, but we turned their own house into the stage of their humiliation. Before watching the video, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I'd also really appreciate a like and a subscribe. The most interesting comment will be included in the next videos. Thank you to each and every one of you. Enjoy watching. I'm Daniel, 27, male, Mexican, but that's only half the story. The other half is black. My mom's side is Mexican, my dad's side is black, and I grew up in a family that blended carne asada Sundays with gospel choir energy. In our house, culture wasn't some abstract thing. It was the smell of my abuela's tamales, mixing with the smoke from my Uncle Ray's BBQ pit. It was the way my cousins would switch from Spanish to English to black southern slang mid-conversation without missing a beat. It was messy, loud, beautiful. And then there's Idaho, land of mountains, potatoes, and racism so baked into daily life that people spit it out like sunflower seeds without thinking twice. I've lived here my whole life, so I know the drill. Stares in the grocery store, people asking, "What are you exactly?" Like I'm an exotic animal at the zoo. White kids calling me half-breed behind my back in high school. Shit that bruises, but you learn to carry it. Or you think you do. Uncle Ray, 49, runs this small BBQ joint off the highway. The kind of place with plastic tablecloths, smoke-stained walls, and food that tastes like it carries your soul in it. He's been cooking since he was a teenager, learned from his dad, and he's proud of it. Ray's hands are huge, always stained with smoke and sauce, but he's the gentlest man alive. He's been like a second dad to me, the kind of guy who'll drive across town just to fix your sink or sit on the porch and talk life with you for hours. And then there are his kids, my cousins Marcus, 21, and Kiana, 18. Marcus is built like a linebacker but quiet, always watching, always careful. Kiana's the opposite. Sharp-tongued, funny, never afraid to check someone. We grew up more like siblings than cousins, which is why what happened at that catering gig gutted me so bad. A white family hired Uncle Ray to cater their party. They saw the food truck, saw the family picture in the flyer, knew who they were hiring. And still, the second my uncle and cousins showed up, the poison started dripping. I watched these grown adults sneer as they whispered smelly niggers loud enough to make sure Ray could hear. I saw their kids pointing and giggling at Kiana, muttering shit like, "Black people are weird," like it was some big inside joke. And here's the part that broke me. Uncle Ray didn't even flinch. He just kept serving ribs, smiling like his dignity wasn't being stomped on right there in the open. Marcus handed out plates. Kiana poured lemonade, like nothing was happening, like this was Tuesday. I asked him later, asked him why the hell he tolerated that bullshit, why he didn't pack up and walk out, why he didn't burn their whole backyard down with righteous fury. He just shrugged and said, "Danny, it's so common for me, I hardly think twice anymore." And that right there felt like a knife to the chest, because the world had beaten my uncle down so many times that even blatant cartoon-level racism was just background noise to him, but not to me. Not this time. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, every muscle in my jaw locked tight, replaying the scene over and over. The way Uncle Ray wiped his hands on his apron after some red-faced guy muttered the slur like he was announcing the weather. The way Marcus looked at the ground instead of making eye contact, like absorbing humiliation was part of his job description. The way Kiana's face froze, smile gone, eyes hard, but she still kept pouring drinks because what else was she supposed to do? and then Ray's words. It's so common for me. I hardly think twice anymore. Like it was a stomachache you just get used to. That broke something in me. See, Uncle Ray wasn't always this, and numb. I remember when I was little, maybe 7 or 8, he got into it with some drunk guys outside a gas station. They started with boy and ended with worse, and Ray didn't back down. He got loud. He got in their faces. I thought he was invincible. That night, sitting in the car with my cousins, we all looked at him like he was some kind of superhero. But then years passed. Tickets for driving suspiciously. Restaurant customers asking to be reseated away from him. White parents pulling their kids closer at the park when Marcus was around. The small humiliations piled up one after another until I guess even the strongest man decides yelling isn't worth it anymore. But that doesn't mean I could stomach it. The next morning I drove to the BBQ joint. The whole place smelled like smoked brisket and hickory, comfort and home wrapped into one. Ray was behind the counter, moving slow, still humming to himself while chopping pork. Marcus was mopping the floor. Kiana was scrolling her phone at a booth. Normal day. Like nothing had happened. I slid into the booth across from Kiana. She raised an eyebrow. You're still stewing, she said flatly, not even looking up from her phone. Stewing? They called y'all... I stopped myself, the word choking me. They called you that and you just took it. Finally, she looked at me. You think it was the first time? She asked, voice sharp. Danny, I've been hearing shit like that since middle school. First time I wore braids, a teacher told me that they looked ghetto. You think I cry about it every night? Nah, I go on with my life. Her calmness wasn't strength to me. It was resignation, and it made me angrier. Uncle Ray came over, wiping his hands. He gave me this tired look, the kind a man gives when he knows you're about to start a fight he's already surrendered. Don't waste your fire on them, he said. You'll burn yourself up before you change their minds. But here's the thing. I didn't want to change their minds. I wanted them to choke on their own bile. I wanted them to feel what it's like to be small and powerless and embarrassed in public. That party should have been the last time they ever felt comfortable laughing at my family, and I started thinking maybe it will be. I stopped sleeping, not because I was worried I'd get punched or arrested, although I ran through that mental tape too, but because I couldn't stand the image of my uncle smiling while those people spat at him. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Uncle Ray handing plates to the same family that called him smelly niggers, saw Marcus forcing a smile while the little white kid pointed and laughed. Thoughts made my stomach turn like acid. The next morning I started doing something I'd never done before. I started paying attention like an investigator, not a nephew. I followed the Harrison family's public posts. I didn't do anything illegal. I clicked the public profile, read the comments, and saved screenshots of the invitation where they thanked the BBQ guys for catering. Their son, Owen Harrison, posted a video of the party on his public Instagram, tagging the yard, the playlist, and stupidly bragging about how exclusive the event had been. People leave traces. People always do. When I told Kiana about it at the joint, she slammed her phone down so hard the sugar shaker jumped. She didn't need convincing. You gonna actually do something about it? She asked. Her mouth twisted in that way I'd seen her gnaw on for years, before she cracked some joke to hide it. Marcus leaned against the counter, quiet, fists splayed like he could crush a brick without thinking. He didn't say much, but you could see the fire under his skin. Uncle Ray? He shook his head and laughed low. Boy, you gonna get yourself in trouble. These folks got money, connections. You make a fuss and they'll make your life harder than it already is. His hand smoothed the apron like that apron was stitched with memories of fights he'd once had, of slaps that stopped being news. He didn't want blood in the street. He wanted his ribs sold and his kids paid and his doors open. I didn't want blood either. Revenge didn't have to mean violence. It could be something cleaner, catastrophic in a different way. Exposure. I wanted the Harrisons to choke on the reality of what they'd done while everybody watched. I wanted the world to look at the footage, read the comments, and feel the shame that had never touched Uncle Ray. I wanted their comfortable little life to taste bitter. But even quiet revenge needs allies. Enter Lena, regular customer, white, early 60s, soft voice like a church organ and a backbone of iron. Lena had been coming by Ray's for years. She'd seen how folks treated my cousins. When I told her what happened, she didn't even blink. "No," she said. "Not on my watch." She started listing possibilities, a local paper, community board, someone at the school. And I heard the plan start to shimmy into shape. Before anything happened, the pressure snapped. Marcus, 2 days after we first talked, nearly lost it in front of that same Harrison kid at the grocery store. Owen was with his backpack, smirking like he'd seen a clown. Marcus stepped up, voice low, and Owen sneered something racist under his breath again. Marcus moved before I could stop him, probably to throw a shoulder or grab the kid by the collar, and I had to physically pull him back. His hands were shaking. His face was a map of old hurt. That was the moment I knew the quiet route was already becoming dangerous. The Harrisons were baiting us without even trying. So I backed away from the impulse to smash a taillight or slash a tire. Those things cross lines. I wanted the Harrisons ruined in the only way that would really matter to them, socially, in front of their people, with proof. I wanted their words to echo back at the party where they'd felt safe calling us less than human. We started building the plan in fits and starts, screenshots, witness lists, a quiet group chat with Lena, Marcus, Kiana, and me. Uncle Ray insisted on staying out of it. He'd be cooked if his name hit the wrong pages. But Marcus and Kiana promised to be present for whatever I cooked up. I felt like some kind of arsonist with a cookbook. Careful, precise, trying to light a fire that would burn to see only the things that deserved it. And then, as we mapped it out, the Harrisons did the one stupid thing people with secrets always do. They bragged publicly in a way that made it impossible for them to explain it away. That post, the tagged photos, the casual, cruel caption was a match in a dry room. We had fuel. We had a spark. We just needed a crowd. The plan went from idea to gasoline faster than I expected. Lena did what she said she would. She called a reporter friend at the local alt weekly and forwarded screenshots. She posted a quiet, brutal thread in the neighborhood Facebook group, screenshots of Owen's tagged video, the caption where one of the Harrison moms joked about keeping our yard clean from those kinds of people. The audio clip we'd managed to extract from the party footage where you could hear the slur clear as day. It spread into a dozen feeds overnight. People started commenting, and the comments were a stew of shock, denial, and the kind of righteous outrage that smells like a storm front. We decided to go public in the only place where the Harrisons felt untouchable. Their HOA's summer fundraiser at the Harrison house. They'd posted photos last week bragging about the turnout, the catered lawn games. Perfect. Lena and I showed up as neighbors concerned about community values. Marcus and Kiana wore polos and acted like they were there for the volleyball and potato sack races. Uncle Ray stayed at the truck out of public sight, texting us to keep our heads down and not let this blow back on him. He refused to be the martyr. I hadn't felt that much adrenaline since high school. Standing there, watching Mr. Harrison, thick neck, red face, the kind of guy who considers a lawnmower more important than empathy. Crack jokes with his cronies, felt like standing in the strike zone of a storm I had called down. I was shaking, but not from fear. It was like being wound tight for something that had to break. Lena gave the reporter the USB on a bench while I pretended to tie my shoe. The reporter smiled a quick, private victory and started filming. No pomp, just ordinary people with cameras when they sense news. Then Lana walked up to the mic that had been left by the band and said, soft but loud enough for the whole cul-de-sac, "We invited everyone to celebrate community, but community should be for everyone." She clicked play. The audio filled the yard. The slur. Owen's laugh. The Harrison mom's voice, joking about keeping the place clean. The neighbors whooped. Some laughed nervously. Some went still. For a beat, everything hung there, like the air was a bowl the truth sat in. Then Mr. Harrison, went off. His face went from flushed to volcanic. He stormed forward, ripped the speaker from Lena's hands, and started shouting. "You planted that!" he screamed, finger jabbing at Marcus like he had a dart. "You people are stalking my family. How dare you?" His wife joined in, corralling the kids between them, shrieking that we were ruining their party, that we were liars. Owen, the kid who'd laughed about us, marched up with his chest out, mouthing the same insults he'd posted online. That's when physical chaos happened in a way I hadn't fully imagined. Greg snatched a folding table and swung it, not at us, but at the portable bar, smashing glasses into a glittering, dangerous storm. Someone pushed Marcus. An older neighbor who'd been a silent Harrison sycophant slapped Marcus across the face, then tried to run. Kiana shoved the man back and caught a cuffed elbow. A kid, Owen, tripped and went sprawling into the charred mulch near the truck, crying. Beer and lemonades flew. The band stopped. The police came, of course, within 10 minutes. But the damage was done. The footage and the audio went live before the uniforms had a chance to calm every ego. My chest felt hollow and on fire at the same time. I'd wanted exposure, not blood, not broken glass, not Kiana with a split lip and Marcus with a bruise forming near his jaw. We lit a fire. It burned faster and uglier than I'd planned. Update. Okay, quick check-in, 'cause you people on here are wild and supportive and messy and honest, and I need to breathe some of this into the record. First, yes, the video hit the alt weekly and then the neighborhood group exploded. Some of y'all said, "Burn their house down." LOL, chill. And some DM'd me links to civil rights lawyers. Actual useful stuff, thank you. Someone donated money for the medical checkups for Kiana and Marcus. They're shaken, not hospital. A few people called us vigilantes, others called us brave. One hilarious comment said, "Imagine thinking you can silence a family by being loud." Yeah, imagine. Also, the reporter who ran it got a ton of DMs. Some supportive, some death threats. We're keeping receipts and names. Uncle Ray is furious with how fast it spun out, but he also quietly told me that was needed. I'm not naive. We stepped into a hornet's nest. But tonight, while scrolling through the flood of comments, I realized this isn't just a small neighborhood story anymore. It's a crack. And cracks let the light in. They came for paperwork 2 days after the video blew up. I woke to Marcus's texts. Short, all caps like his hands had the trouble being gentle. They flagged the truck. Health dept says no permit on file. Ray's gotta shut down. My stomach did the thing it does before it drops. I called him, listened to the clink of metal and the low hum of the generator through the phone. Uncle Ray sounded small over the noise, like the smoke had hollowed him out. "Somebody called them in," he said, voice flat. Said we were unsafe. Said there were complaints. Greg Harrison, of course, was the first name that came to mind. The same man who'd ripped the speaker off Lena's hands and turned his lawn into a war zone. The same man who'd stood there with the stupid, proud look of someone who'd never been told they were wrong about anything. He didn't even try to hide it. Within hours, a screenshot of him emailing the county inspector was floating around the neighborhood group, couched in that sick, entitled language. Those people should not be serving food in our community. They weren't just slurring us anymore. They were weaponizing bureaucracy. We scrambled. Lena called every contact she had. The reporter slowed down to a roar. He started asking questions that made Greg and his cronies look sloppy, like people who assume they're clever and are not. Marcus stood in front of the truck like a boulder and argued with the inspector until the man admitted the complaint came from a caller using a Harrison return number. Small legal shit, paperwork, permits, can ruin a life if someone leans on it. Ray's license was up to date, but a temporary suspension meant a week without income and a truck that would sit with its smoker cold as death. That night I went by the joint to help patch things. We were scraping grease off racks, counting inventory, planning a GoFundMe when a car pulled up slow and mean. Greg Harrison stepped out with that look of a man who'd already decided his morals were a badge. He walked up to the truck and kicked the side so hard the metal rang. "You ruined my party," he hissed. "You ruined my family." He shoved Marcus. Marcus shoved back. I remember the sound first. The sick, hollow crack when Greg swung a folding chair at Marcus' head. It clipped Marcus's cheek and Marcus reacted like a coiled wire. 2 steps in, hands on Greg's shirt, pushing. People I didn't know had spilled out of the houses. Kiana lunged, grabbed Greg's arm. His wife started screaming, calling the cops and the pastor and anyone who would listen. Greg suddenly unhinged, started grabbing for anything to make himself feel big, slamming a toolbox, pulling a tent pole free. He was escalating like an animal, desperate to survive his own failure. Somebody filmed it. Somebody always films it. Police arrived. Witness statements stacked up like wet paper. Greg came off as the instigator in every clip. Angry, ranting, losing it while the video from the original party sat on the internet like the slow, patient judge it had become. The Alt Weekly ran a follow-up the next day showing the complaint email, the party audio, and now Greg's violent outburst. The banner read, "Community outrage. After racist slurs, violent confrontation." His company, some conservative little bank he prided himself on, contacted HR. An internal inquiry started the same afternoon. The HOA called an emergency meeting and unanimously removed Greg from the board. That was the sweet, clean part. A man who tried to weaponize his status found his status used against him. The world has a way of bouncing what you throw out right back at you if you're loud enough. But the victory tasted funny. Ray's truck was dented. Kiana's lips split open where the old neighbor had struck her. Marcus had a bruise blooming under his jaw. Ray looked at me that evening in the dim light of the empty parking lot and said quietly, "You wanted their heads, kid. You got 'em." I felt proud and hollow in the same heartbeat. Then the slow, harder part began. The payback Greg had promised in whispers. Reports to health, to licensing, to the county inspector came in waves. Anonymous calls, too. Someone had painted a hateful message on the back of my truck with spray paint in the middle of the night. Tires slashed. A note left under the windshield wiper that said, "Watch the family. We notice things." It was classic escalation. When the public shaming failed, the private terror campaign started. We filed police reports. We installed cameras. Lena drove Ray to his hearings and sat with him while he signed forms and cried once when she thought no one could see. My chest was clenched all day and night. The rage that lit the fuse was now a complicated, smoldering thing. I'd wanted the Harrisons to feel small. They'd felt it, and had changed them into something nastier. The question buzzed. Did we spark a cure or a contagion? But revenge, I learned that week, doesn't end with someone's job lost or their image ruined. It has a cost. We lost time. Ray lost days of work. Marcus lost the sense that the world would be fair if you did the right thing. And we had undeniably made a difference. Neighbors called, donations trickled in to fix grills and pay for the inspector fees. The GoFundMe hit enough to buy a new smoker. People showed up to help wash the truck. Greg, though, he kept spiraling. He called the local TV station crying victim. He dragged in a pastor, called the police multiple times, and tried to sue for defamation. Each move made him look worse. Each lawyer letter a little more frantic. The man who'd spent his life pretending civility's covered cruelty was unraveling on his own lawn. Standing in the parking lot with Ray that Sunday, smelling char and old sauce and the faint perfume of bleach from Kiana's cut, I realized the truth of what I'd done. I'd broken something, but not my uncle. I'd cracked a surface that had been glossy with cowardice for generations. Now people saw what was underneath. And for the first time in a long time, Ray's face wasn't the numb calm of someone who'd stopped expecting decency. It was wary, yes, but alive. They got meaner in a way that felt personal, like the world had finally taught them that words have a price, and they decided to squeeze every penny out of the bill before paying it. 2 nights after we patched the smoker and scrubbed the worst of the paint off the truck, my phone lit up with a picture Marcus had sent and a whole side of Ray's storage shed shredded. The old wedding photo of Ray and my aunt ripped clean down the middle, glass everywhere. They'd painted Keep Idaho clean above it in ugly white letters. Someone had egged the fence, left dog shit on the step with a note tucked into it that said, "Next time we'll flamethrow your barbecue." I had that slow, hot flash of fury in my limbs that makes your hands itch to break things. Marcus wrote under the pic, "They're getting worse." No shit. Greg was drunk on being exposed. He had stopped hiding and started trying to gaslight us back into silence. He called the county again, filing new complaints about supposed vermin, food handling. He left voicemails for Ray that were half prayer, half threat. We don't want trouble, but we will do what's necessary to protect our kids. Like he was some suburban saint with a grudge. The pastor he dragged in. That man's messages started sounding like a series of warnings, cautionary little prayers, thinly veiling which side the church would prefer. The moral pivot Greg thought he could buy was turning into a leash. The worst part came when Greg started showing up. First at the farmer's market where Lena bought herbs, leaning against his truck like he hadn't just tried to ruin a family's business. Then at a town council meeting where he spoke about community standards and protecting families while sitting 2 rows ahead of me, chin up, real constable energy. He'd smile and wave at us like nothing was happening, and the edges of that smile were sharper than any knife. One night he pulled up at the joint after closing, spotlight on his face like a man who thinks intimidation's an art form. He walked up to the truck and kicked the smoker so hard the latch broke. Then he leaned over and hissed, loud enough for the surveillance camera, "You'll be gone soon." I felt 2 things at once. The familiar feral thrill of my plan working on some levels, and a bone-deep dread. When men in power panic, they get dangerous. That's when the suits started to actually mean something. The alt weekly kept running pieces. The reporter kept digging. Someone in Greg's company finally watched the original audio and the footage of his chair-swinging tantrum and had enough. HR put him on leave. His pastor posted a quiet plea for calm that read more like a distancing maneuver than anything else. The HOA had stripped him of the board seat, small wins stacked up like bricks. But the harassment didn't stop. Tires slashed again. Someone keyed Ray's truck with a message that read, "Trash." Marcus X got a threatening DM. Kiana's locker at her community college smelled like bleach the morning she went to class. It was petty and personal, and it hollowed out the easy feeling of triumph we'd had. And yet, the community kept answering. The GoFundMe paid to replace the smoker. A local bakery donated pies every weekend. Lana rallied a handful of older neighbors who started showing up at the joint for breakfast, ostensibly for the biscuits, but really to be visible. Visibility is contagious. It's harder to threaten somebody when half the block is sitting at their counter. Update. Okay, y'all. The inbox has been chaotic. Some of you wanted us to go scorched earth. LOL no. Others DM'd the number for a civil rights lawyer. We took it. And someone sent a link to a petition that got 2,000 signatures in 24 hours. One guy in the thread joked we should put a plaque on the truck that says, "We cater courage," and that got 800 likes. Small things keeping us human. Also, big. A user ran Greg's name through public records and found he'd once been cited for failure to disclose a safety violation at his bank's community grant event. That tiny nugget got picked up by the reporter and turned Greg's community protector mask into a joke in the paper. People started seeing the pattern. I'm not proud of every move we made. We rattled a family hard and paid a price for it. But watching Kiana smile at a customer the other morning, a real smile, not the careful one she used to reserve, made me think we'd done something that mattered. Greg's phone calls had grown frantic and thin. He promised reprisals. He threatened court. He lost sleep. I lay awake some nights, picturing him sitting on his porch, quiet, finally feeling the smallness he tried to impose on us. This is where it gets thorny. He's not finished, and neither are we. The next move matters. By the time September came, Greg Harrison wasn't just unraveling. He was clawing. He lost his HOA seat. His bank had quietly shoved him out the door on administrative leave. The paper had roasted him 3 times in a month. He should have been licking his wounds. Instead, he doubled down. One Thursday, Marcus found a rock through the joint's front window, wrapped in duct tape with a scrap of paper inside that read, "Stay gone." Ray swept the glass in silence, shoulders rigid. His silence scared me more than yelling ever could. Kiana, meanwhile, had started checking over her shoulder walking to class. Someone had been following her. A silver SUV that showed up in the parking lot 3 days in a row. She swore she saw Owen Harrison in the passenger seat once. Phone pointed right at her. That was the turn. The Harrisons weren't just lashing out. They were circling us like we were prey. So I decided to flip the script. We still had the reporter's interest, but the story had cooled. Outrage burns hot, then fades. To hit back, we needed theater. Something poetic, something that would stick in memory. I started with the one symbol Greg prized most. His yard. That stupid manicured lawn had been his pulpit. His fortress, the stage where he screamed that night when Lana hit play on the speaker. Greg mowed it twice a week. He bragged about a fertilizer. It was his ego in grass form. Marcus hated the idea of sneaking around, but when I pitched it to Kiana, she grinned for the first time in weeks. "Turn his pride into a joke," she said. "I'm in." We waited until the neighborhood's fall block party. Same cul-de-sac where Greg had once swaggered. This time he wasn't invited to speak. But he hovered on the edge, glaring at everyone, desperate to remind folks he still existed. That's when our plan unfolded. At dawn, Marcus and I had rolled into his yard with a borrowed projector, set it low and hidden. At nightfall, right as the party hit full swing, the side of Greg's pristine garage lit up with footage. His own voice screaming the slur, his chair swing tantrum, the smashed bar, the emails, all of it 10 feet high, cast across his perfect white paint like graffiti made of truth. The crowd went dead quiet, then erupted. Some gasped, some laughed nervously. Kids asked questions out loud their parents couldn't dodge. A neighbor filmed the whole thing and uploaded it with the caption, "The truth always grows back." Greg lost it. He stormed out of his house barefoot, beer in one hand, swinging his arms like a drunk scarecrow. He screamed about invasion of privacy, about harassment, about blackmail. Wrong word, but he was beyond sense. He kicked at the projector, grabbed the extension cord, and when it didn't shut off immediately, he hurled his beer at Marcus. Marcus stepped forward, calm but iron. "Hit me again," he said. His voice carried. "Do it in front of them all." And Greg froze. For the first time he looked small. Neighbors pulled him back. Somebody shouted, "Enough, Greg." A woman muttered, "You should have moved months ago." The air had shifted. People weren't afraid of him anymore. They were embarrassed by him. He stumbled inside, slamming the door so hard his stupid decorative wreath fell off. The projector kept looping on the wall, proof etched into his kingdom of grass. We packed up quiet, hearts pounding, adrenaline shaking our hands. Ray hadn't come. He still refused to be a part of it. But when I showed him the video later, his lips pressed tight, and for the first time in weeks he nodded. Not approval exactly, but not disapproval either. Greg had wanted us small. That night his own house turned him into the spectacle, and for once it was him hiding behind the curtains. Greg Harrison didn't come back from that night. He tried, of course. The man was too stubborn to crawl into silence. He filed a police report claiming we trespassed. The officers came by Ray's joint, asked a few questions, then shrugged when we showed them the footage was projected from the sidewalk. Public property, case closed. Greg blew up in the station lobby, red-faced, demanding arrests. Someone filmed that too. It hit Facebook before he even got home. Within a week his lawn looked neglected for the first time in years. Grass too high, edges ragged. He stopped mowing. The man whose identity was tied to straight lines and green blades was unraveling where it showed most. His house, once the centerpiece of the cul-de-sac, looked like a sore tooth. And the harassment? It fizzled. No more slashed tires, no more spray paint. Whoever he'd rallied to his side got spooked once the projector video hit the internet. Threats stop being fun when everyone knows your name. Ray's BBQ truck, though. That thing came back roaring. The GoFundMe bought a brand new smoker. The local paper ran a feature on communities standing against hate, and suddenly lines wrapped around the block. People who had never stopped in before came to order pulled pork and brisket just to say something kind. Lena organized volunteers to repaint the shed and replace the window. Kids from the neighborhood showed up with paintbrushes. Even the mayor dropped by, grinning awkwardly for a photo with Ray, who rolled his eyes but went along. Ray still grumbled about it all. Said we should have let it slide. That dignity isn't something you prove with fireworks. But then I caught him one morning, standing outside the truck before opening, hand on the new smoker, whispering something to himself that sounded a lot like thanks. Marcus? He carried himself taller. People treated him different now. Not because racism vanished, but because the Harrisons had been exposed, and Marcus had stood his ground without folding. Kiana walked around campus like she had armor. She'd tell anyone who asked what happened. No shame, no softening. And me? I can't lie. Part of me still feels that hollow burn. Revenge tastes sweet going down, but it leaves a bitter aftertaste. I don't regret it. Not 1 second. But I do wonder what lines we crossed, what it cost Ray to watch his name in the paper when all he ever wanted was to sell ribs and live quiet. As for Greg, the last I heard, he sold the house at a loss and moved 2 towns over. Somebody said his wife filed for divorce, that Owen switched schools. His name is still in the comment section sometimes, usually followed by racist and loser. That projector night etched him into local memory the way he'd never wanted. Uncle Ray always said, "Fire burns everyone, even the one who lights it." Maybe he's right. But when I drive past that cul-de-sac and see a different family's kids playing, where Greg once lorded over his perfect lawn, I don't feel guilt. I feel like we took something ugly and cracked it open for the light to get in. And for once, the smoke in Ray's truck tastes like victory. If you like the video, subscribe to the channel and like it. You can also watch more shocking stories in the playlist.